Greetings, everybody. I'm Papo Cappuccino, and this is my minute of Black History. So, you might have known, or you might already know, that in the early 1700s, the late 1600s, you had Black liberators all over the Americas. For example, you have Gaspar Janga from Mexico, you have Bencos Biojo from Colombia, you have Zumbidos Palmares from Brazil. But did you know that here in the United States of what is now the United States of America, part of our history includes one of the most fierce Black leaders of free settlements. Yes, free settlements here on what is the continental United States. His name was Francisco Menendez, Captain Francisco Menendez, Captain Francisco Menendez. Yes, he was in Spanish Florida, and became the leader of what is now called Fort Mose, or Fort Mose, which actually the real name was Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose in Nueva Florida. He was a leader under the Spanish crown, and the way this happened, let me tell you the story. Francisco Menendez was a Mandinga warrior that they captured in the coast of West Africa, and they brought him to the Carolinas in the colonies. So these slave catchers, raided the Mandinga territory of West Africa, which is, I guess now it's the Gambia area, but it's, there's no telling exactly which is the pinpoint area. But they brought this fierce and intelligent man through the slave passage to land in the Carolinas. When he landed in the Carolinas, of course he was enslaved, but it did not take him long to find his freedom. He was able to go ahead and make friends with the Native Americans because he was a quick and very smart and strategic thinker. He made friends with Native Americans, which had helped him escape from the Carolinas down to what was free in Florida. So he came to the free territory of La Florida, which in the mid-1600s, the King of Spain declared that all Africans that wanted to help work and live in what was called Nueva Florida, or Florida, they would have freedom. So this created a sense of urgency for all the slaves to not only escape, but escape south to Florida. Yes. Sounds like the Underground Railroad. But yes, the first Underground Railroad did not go north. It went south to Florida, to freedom, to what was the several free towns or free settlements of Black and indigenous people, or what is called the Seminoles or Cimarrones, which is another topic of discussion. But there was two very famous forts, or settlements actually, which were next to forts because they had the forts to protect the settlements. Okay? So there is two very famous. One is Fort Negro, and the other one is Fort Mose. And Fort Mose, which is the one we're talking about, is just several miles north of San Agustin in Florida. And Fort Mose was the largest Black settlement and of free Blacks in Florida in the 1600s. They had freedom. So you had, for about 200 years, you had free Blacks being born in the United States, which was actually at that time Spain, part of Spain. a colony of Spain, let's say, you had free blacks being born in Florida soil who was not born a slave. And these people actually developed a large community that was so large and so vast that they had their own regiments of military. And part of this military, the history of this military is part of Spanish history from Spain, because it's colonial history for Spain. However, it's not taught in the U.S. No, no, no. You're not going to find this in your regular black history class, because they don't really teach black history before the settlement of Jamestown. You see, but the reality is, blacks have been here in the North America, in the Americas, since the 1500s. Yes. So this story is about Francisco, Captain Francisco, because he was such a fierce force of a fighter that him being the leader of the forces in Fort Mose, he would go with the other Spaniards and they would attack up in the Carolinas off the coast in order to get more blacks to come down south. Yes, he was a liberator. He was I would say, one of the strongest black liberators in black history today. He would go with regiments of not only black soldiers, but black and Spanish soldiers, to fight the British, who of course controlled everything above the Carolinas and Georgia and all that, right? Well, actually not so much Georgia, but the Carolinas. So, and everything up north was all British colonies. So he would go and get freedom for other blacks and bring them back down to Florida, where they would establish this large community. Now, the British, they tried to defeat the Spaniards coming down to Florida to beat the blacks and the Seminoles, which were actually the black and Indian mix, and also the other Native American tribes, all mixed together, lived together. The British tried to defeat them, but they couldn't, until the end of what was Nueva Florida, which after the war, and the British actually was able to get to St. Augustine. These people migrated. They weren't captured and went back to slavery, no, because they've been living free for a long time. So these blacks, the majority of them, left what is now Florida and went to live in Cuba, where they established another town for free people, free blacks. So Captain Francisco Menendez, I want everyone to remember the name and explore and look it up, because he was one of the world's biggest black warriors, freedom fighters, and he is someone you should know. So celebrate Black History Month and look up Captain Francisco Menendez. Gotcha.